Hey everybody, welcome to the Slick Tree Podcast. I'm your host, Colby Langford. The point of this show is to help improve ourselves as dogmen and to raise the quality of the dogs on the end of our lead. So let's settle in, turn the volume up, and let's see if we can't learn a trick or two together from our guests. Hey everybody, you are listening to the Slick Tree Podcast. Today we are in Clarksville, Arkansas. My buddy Dee Patton has introduced me to another pair of gentlemen that I've came down here to talk to, and Dee's sitting here to my left, and then we're in the living room of Mr. Dayne Phillips. He's across from me, and his grandson Devin Phillips. I'd just like to take a second and thank everybody here in this room for agreeing to do this and giving me a little bit of your time today.
Colby, we thank you for coming down here and doing this.
Yeah, glad to meet you and glad to visit with you.
Mr. Dayne, I don't know a whole lot about you other than just kind of what Dee's told me, but it sounds like you've had a pretty interesting life, and you've done some pretty interesting things when it comes to hunting. Why don't we start out? Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I started out when I was in high school. I guess my first project in 4-H was a little bull calf my dad gave me, or bought for me. I gave a $1 bill for it at the sale barn out here in Clarksville. And I grew that little calf, and I had dreams of just raising cattle all my life. And then we sold the little calf, and I made a little money, and I raised a few chickens. I was just a farm boy. We didn't have anything at all. My dad helped me. He'd buy something for me and let me pay him back when I sold it. And that kept on. And when I got into high school, I got into the 7th grade and I worked on a dairy just down the road here. And it doesn't sound like much, but the fellow was paying me $1 a milking for milking the herd of cattle. And I made $2 a day for 7 days a week. Then if I worked every day, he gave me an extra $1. I made $15 a week. And that went on. I bought a few Jersey calves at sales around, registered jerseys. And my wife worked here in town. We married when I was 19, she was 17, and neither one of us went to college. She was working in town here, had 3 little jobs. She had 3 jobs, and we made ends meet after we got married for a little while there, and we got along all right. And we kept our little herd of cattle, and it kept growing, and we finally, I was working for the dairy there, and the fellow that I was working for had an accident. He was cleaning his rifles and leaned out the door to talk to the milkman that came to pick up their extra milk that morning, and he had his finger up on the barrel of the gun, and when he opened the door, it slipped down, and he shot himself. And I went to the hospital. The lady that I worked for, we had, at that time, we had another dairy over at Ludwig, a little community just east of us here. And so I came on up to the hospital, and he passed away there. And she offered to sell me the dairy there. And I said, well, I don't have any money. I don't know how I can buy it. And she said, well, I'll sell it to you for just so many dollars a month, and you can pay it out no matter how long it takes. So we bought it, and that was the beginning of our lives here in Johnson County. I lived here about all my life. Then I worked here after we built our home here. That was in 1966. And after I built my home, we moved up here, and I worked on the locking dams in Arkansas. And as I was working on the locks and dams, I worked there for about 3 years and done some carpenter work around here locally. And I always wanted to be a dairyman, but we had to sell our dairy herd. My wife didn't like getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning or 3:30 and delivering milk every day. We were delivering milk house to house here in town. And back then, milk was 21 cents a quart, so that didn't leave a whole lot of room for money. But we enjoyed it, and we sold our cattle and made a little money on them. And we kept that money, little money that we had. We were both kind of, well, we were saving with our money, and we kept it. And in '69, then I had an accident on a sawmill job down in South Town, and I cut one of my fingers off. And I told the doctor in Fort Smith that he might as well take my hand off. It looked like I'd lost it anyway. And he laughed at me, and he said, we'll have a hand there that you can probably use. And so I daddled that for about a year and 2 months before I got to go back to work. I had to have 3 surgeries on it, and just about the time one would heal, there'd be something else go wrong with my hand, and he kept patching on it and got it to working. And then in 1969, I got my hand in a table saw on. That's where I got my hand injured, was on that table saw down in Southtown. And that's when I was off for 14 months. And during that 14 months, I was coon hunting all the time. I started coon hunting when I was about 14 years old, I guess. And I was hunting in some competition hunts. And I didn't have a good coon hunting light. I just had a carbide light that I carried with me. And carried that little carbide light every night coon hunting. And so I got to thinking after I got my hand injured that I'd like to have a better light. And so I got to thinking of ways that I could make a better light. And I bought a motorcycle battery down at one of the hardware stores. It was a little small battery, about 4 inches tall and 3 inches wide. And I made me up a little aluminum case and put around it, and run the wires up to my headlight on my hard hat. I had a little bump cap that I used when I was working on the locks and dams. And I hooked that headlight to that hard hat, and I coon hunted with it until a fellow wanted to buy it, and I sold it to him. And I did that 3 or 4 times. I'd make up new lights, a little bit different every time. And the people that I hunt with, they'd want a better light, but I'd sell it to them, you know. And finally, it got to where I knew there was going to be a demand for lights if I could just make one that was good enough, you know. So I went down to Little Rock, contacted the fellow down there making a mold for me. And Lord, it was going to cost for a 1.5-foot square piece of metal, it was going to cost me over $8,000 to make a mold for just the battery, you know. That's all I was trying to make, was just the battery to hook up to a headlamp. So my wife and I talked about it, and she about had a nervous breakdown. In fact, she was in the hospital when I went down there to pay him for that mold. We had to save that $8,000 from all of our dairy business, and went down there, and I paid him $8,000 for that mold, and it took us over a year to get it made. And I'd call him every now and then to see how he's coming along. And well, I'm doing pretty good, but it's not finished yet. It ought to be ready in a couple of months. Well, that kept on for over a year, and I was getting impatient. Finally, the fellow that worked for him left the job down there. And he called me one night after he left, and he said, Dayne, said, I've got your mold down here with me now. Said, I've got a shop down here at Bryant, and said, I'll make the mold for you. And I said, well, it's not going to cost me any extra in it. He said, oh, no. Said he gave me the money that you gave him, and said he's going to quit business, I think. So he made me a mold, and I got that. It took him still about 6 months to make the mold. And I got the mold back or went down there and looked at it, and I took the battery that we were using for inside this mold, and the old dry cell batteries had two posts coming up, positive and the negative, and that's what I was going to make them fit on, was that positive and negative post. Well, we got the battery made, and my wife and I went up and down the river valley here buying little headlamps. They were little aluminum headlamps with about a 3-inch first surface on them to shine the light through. They were real bright, but they weren't very practical to use coon hunting. And so we did that. And we ran an ad in the American Cooner Coon Hunting magazine and the Full Cry magazine. It was a full-page ad. Back then, a full-page ad in those magazines had very little circulation, you know. And we ran that ad, and it cost us about $250 per ad. So we ran the ads, and we advertised the battery only. It was a battery, looked like a dry cell battery, but had a plastic case around it, and we had this little motorcycle battery in there. So we hooked those up, and I had my older son was about 12, 14. My younger son was about 9 or 10, and so we got those batteries back from the fellow that manufactured the case for us, and we put these motorcycle batteries in them. We had to glue the top on them, and he didn't have a way at that time. He didn't know how to make the belt loops on the back of the motorcycle, the battery cases. So we had to glue with just natural glue, airplane glue, glue the belt cases onto the case of the light. And we did that for, I guess, the next 8 years. We did the lights just like that. We built the lights, batteries rather, and we sold the little headlamps, and we started on our way. And I remember we were working up at the school at, just east of Fort Smith there, and my wife had been out trying to buy battery chargers that day. She went up from Fort Smith all the way to Little Rock. She'd look in the little hardware stores and buy battery chargers to charge our batteries with. And so we did that, and she came by where I was working there one day, still as a carpenter, and she said, Dayne, said, guess what? I said, I don't know. She said, we got 8 orders today. And we were so proud of that. So I came home, and of course that night I think there was 5 lights in the bunch and 3 batteries. So we packaged up the little battery chargers that she'd bought at the hardware stores, and the little lights that we'd bought, any kind of headlamp that we'd put on there. We didn't have them advertised, but we advertised a battery and a headlamp and a charger. Well, at that time, I think we were selling the whole outfit for $39.95, and I'd come home at night. Bobby and Bruce, my 2 sons. My wife we had an old typewriter here that she'd used in one of her jobs. She would make up invoices, type up the invoices. Bobby and Bruce and I, we'd package the lights in a little box that we had made just to fit the lamp and the lights. And we started shipping lights then, and sometimes may ship 5 a day, and every day wasn't like that. Every day it may be 1, or every other day it may be 1 or 2, depending on how long the ads had come out and how many people had read them right when they came out. So that went on for for a year, and I was working for a construction company down in Russellville, and I'd come home in the afternoon, and Bobby and Bruce and I, we'd package up the lights that we were going to ship that day and send the invoice with them, and so the business got to growing pretty good. And after a year, I told my boss down there that I was going to have to quit and start taking care of my lights. So I quit down there, gave him a 2-week notice, and on the first day of August, I quit that job down there, and I was making decent wages down there. But I was going to take a gamble and just work on my lights and try to get them developed. And meanwhile, in that time, a fellow by the name of Barney Thompson came along, and he'd seen my ad in a coon hunting magazine somewhere and said that he represented a company that sold chargers. And of course, I was tickled to death to find that out, that I could buy a charger from him for about half the cost of what I was buying them from the store for. And so we did that for a while. And at the end of that year, there was a coon hunting show up in Ohio, Canton, Ohio. And it was a field trial show. But I'd heard about it for a long time, and I was coon hunting about every night. I knew about this. They called it the World Championship Field Trial. It was water race dogs and field trial dogs. They would run a field trial track through the woods, and they had a tree there close to the main showground there, where the tree was up, and they'd raise a coon up in that tree, and after they laid the track down, and the dogs would tree on that tree, so it got the name of the World Championship Field Trial. And then they had a big concrete pit. I don't remember just how long it was, but it was probably 60 yards long, maybe 70, I don't know, something like that. And it was concreted. They had a starting gate at one end of it, and they line the dogs up in that starting gate, and they'd start dragging this coon across the water, floating across the water, and they'd open the gates, and the dogs would jump out, and they'd go down to the tree and tree on the tree that they pulled the coon up, and that was where you got first, second, and third place. Well, a lot of the people in town didn't like the idea of that, and they tried to get it outlawed there in that county for quite a while, but they never had any luck because it was so much of an income tax thing for the county, you know. The fella it got up to where we'd been there for about 16, 17 years, and it got up to where they was having over 120,000 people in there to see the coon races, and they'd charge them $12 per person to see the coon races, and go up and down the midway. Well, when I called him to go up there the first time, their midway was just made up of tents up and down the midway on the other side of the water field race trial. And he told me when I went up there, he said, I'm going to build some metal buildings up here next year, and asked me if I'd want one. And I told him, well, yeah, I'd like to have one, and I might want two. I'd been coming up there for all those years, and our sales had been pretty good, and I'd take products up there and sell to my dealers. And so right after we started going up there, we got a wooden building that we could lock up, and we stayed in that building at night. I'd sleep out there at night and wake up in the morning and open the doors to sell that day. We'd go up the day before Labor Day. We'd get there, well, about 3 days before Labor Day, and set up our buildings. And we started selling up there. That was the only dealer show that we ever made, was that one show. And we had gotten a lot of dealers. I don't know, at the time we sold it, I don't know how many hundred dealers we had, but we had several dealers. We had dealers in every state, Alaska, Hawaii, in every state in the nation. And so it was doing pretty good for us, and we ran it all those years. We just hired the people that we knew. They were friends of mine, or some of them that I went to school with, and my younger sister worked for us. Bobby and Bruce worked for us, and we all just, it was a big family here. When we first started, we ate dinner in the living room and in the kitchen in there, and the dining room. We had 7 or 8 employees, and my mother would make dinner for all of us. We'd all come in and have dinner each day. That goes back a while, but it kept growing. And in 1980, I decided that I was going to risk a lot of money trying to make another mold, but we were going to make a mold to have our own headlamps, where we could sell our own headlamps and manufacture them here in the shop. And I spent I spent probably over a year trying to design that headlamp. It was a hard thing for somebody that never had been to school on engineering or anything to figure out, but I finally got it figured out and knew how I wanted to make it. And the guy down at Benton, he was a real good craftsman at machine work, and he could read my prints that I'd drawn up, and as well as anybody could. And he knew how much shrinkage to allow for every part, and so he knew how to make the parts if I just gave him the dimensions that I needed it finished at. And we had a nice looking headlamp. It was comparable to the mine lights that they sold at that time, and those lights were selling for about $120 for the battery and the cap light, and that was all. So they were our main competition, and we'd gone on all those years, and we finally got that mold made for the headlamp and battery and everything. So we started selling them, and every year our group of people here at the shop, we'd have to build a new building just about every year. We'd have to build a new building, and we'd build one room at a time. I think we went through 7 building projects out here on our buildings, and we finally got up to the size that we needed, and we had 93 employees, and so that was a pretty good bunch for a mom and pop operation. But they were nearly all friends that we knew, and they were family members, people that I'd gone to school with, just good people, I could trust any of them. They were all good, honest people, and it was just amazing at the work they'd put out in a day. And I never had to tell them to work overtime. The lady I never assigned a title to anyone in any of the buildings except one man. I had a man named Ray Willis. He'd worked for the highway department for 19 years, and he came to work for us. I told him I wanted him to be the foreman of the plant. He'd run everything, and I wouldn't have to get out there and deal with the problems that we had every day. And so he would run the plant, and he did an excellent job of it. He was just a good old country boy that knew most of the people that we had. He'd lived around here, and he'd been a good friend of mine for years. And so we worked on that I think he worked for us for about 13 or 14 years till he retired. And we had a good group of people. That's what makes any plant work, is good people, good employees. Now, the last 2 years that we did that, I think we had sold 34,000 lights that year, and lights and batteries anyway. So we had started a catalog on the 3rd year that we were in business, and we started developing that catalog each year, and we developed it up to where we had 96-page catalog. And I don't know just how many hundred items we had, but we had everything for coon hunting that you could imagine. We had window decals that would cover the back of the windows. We had jackets, shirts, T-shirts, hats, just everything imaginable for coon hunts. There was the breeds of dogs. We had 5 breeds of dogs that we would print up names and things on, and they could send their name in to our silk screening group, and they would make up jackets, T-shirts, or caps with their name on the back of them. Or if a club wrote in and wanted to order some, they would put their name on the back of them, just like the individuals. But it was a real good business for us. It was a good business. And we grew from a warehouse, well, about a 600-foot warehouse, to we had about a 33,000 square feet of warehouse space finally. And everything went real well for us, and we were fortunate. God loved us, and He was working for us, it seemed like. The decisions we'd made, it all come from the Lord, and He provided everything for us. And so we went on for about, 18 years, I guess, that we ran the business. And we got a computer the year that we made our own mold for the headlamps. I remember the fella came down and put in the big computer. It was an 80. I'm not a computer man, so I know it was a 80 millimeter, not a millimeter, but a 80 megabyte computer, I think. And I know he went home. He had 3 men here helping him. He built that. We had to build that when we built that warehouse, or it was an office for our operators, our keyboard operators, and we had to build a special room for that computer. And the computer stood about right at 5 feet tall, about 2.5 feet deep, and about 1.5 feet wide. And now my cell phone will hold more information than that computer would back then. It's amazing what these cell phones will do. But anyway, they put in that computer that day, and I'll never forget they left that night about 7 o'clock. He said, "Now tonight," said, "we're doing a computer save there for us tonight." Said it'll save all the information we've put into that computer. And the fellow that was putting it in was the fellow that we'd hired to run our computer for us. And he lived in Fayetteville. And so he was going back home that night to stay for the weekend. He said, "Just call me and I'll tell you just what to do." He said, "No," I said, I'll do better than that. So all you got to do is go out there and push the stop button, and it'll kill the machine. That way you won't ruin the savings of the information we put on it. It'll have everything you've got in stock. It'll have the number that you've got in stock in there. And we had to do an inventory that year. And so he said it'd all go right into that computer. Well, that night he said to take it down about 12 o'clock, 12:30. So I waited till 12:30. I went out there, started turning that computer off, and I couldn't find the stop button on it. And I looked and I looked and I looked, and I punched every button on that computer that I thought would maybe stop it. Now, mind you, I didn't know a thing about a computer. All I knew is the megabytes that he'd put in it and how much information it'd hold. So I called him up, got him out of bed about 1:15, and I said, "Paul," I said, "I can't get this computer to shut down." He laughed. He said, "Well," said, "you've got to push this button and this button first, and then you push the stop button." I said, "Well, I can't find the stop button." He said, "Well, it's the other side of the start button." So I went back out there and I got it stopped, and we did our computer work that day. But that's just one of the funny stories. There's a lot of funny things. I could write a book on them that happened through those years, those 18 years that we were in business. Then we did an inventory every year. Barney Thompson, the fellow that I mentioned earlier that supplied our little chargers for our lights, he stayed with us. He'd visit us every 2 weeks, all the way through the time we started to the time we left. And we were ordering a lot of chargers from him. I remember one time our batteries that were coming in took us about 6 weeks to get them. Well, we were selling so many lights that we were behind over 500 lights at that time. That was early on the start of our light business. And so we were over 500 lights behind. And one night we were going to a basketball game over at Paris across the river. We were going through a little place, a little community just south of the river here. There was a big garage out there. That garage had cars piled up all around it. It was just a big junkyard garage. They'd work on them till they couldn't fix them, and they'd pile them out back. And that whole yard was full of cars. And Bobby Dan, my oldest son, we passed by there, and he said, "Dad, look." He said, "There's somebody that's as far behind as we are." But anyway, we had a lot of fun with the business. I remember that last night that we did an inventory here. I took an inventory. We had several of the ladies that worked out in the production department and that worked in the shipping room that would help us take inventory. And we took inventory, and we had a lot of inventory. We kept business going the year round, and we advertised with 11 pages in each one of those magazines. We had a little catalog in each magazine, and they let us rent those pages or do those pages in the magazines for about the price that they had started us with, because we were the biggest advertiser that they had. And we did that all the time. And the 3 months of the summer, May, June, and July, those 3 months we would just run about a 3-page ad in there. But we'd advertise our light every time. And our lights had gone up in price, and we'd raised the price up so we could have dealers in our marketing, you know. And we had, I don't know just the number of dealers we had, but over 700 dealers in our little group that we had. And we'd set them up to where they could sell lights in about a 25-mile radius around them, about a 50-mile radius wide. And that's the way we set up all of our dealerships. That way they'd have the only night lights in that area. And we thought that would help them, and it did help them. And the dealers appreciated it. And but we'd set up those dealers, and we had a lot of dealers across the country. It got to where we couldn't set up a dealer in any area because of the area they covered. And we had the whole United States covered with dealers just about at one time. And they did a good job for us. We sold them, first started, they had to buy 3 lights. If there were a small dealer, they had to buy 3 lights at a time to get dealer prices. And then we raised that up to 6 lights per dealer. They'd have to order 6 at a time. And so that kind of run our dealerships down to kept it a nominal amount of dealerships in the United States. And it worked out good. They didn't make a lot of money on the products, but they sold them at the full retail price. We just got a bunch of good dealers. They were good dealers all the way through. And they'd sell them at the retail price that we advertised. And we appreciated that, and we told them if we found them selling them below the advertised price, or if they advertised and somebody sent us advertisements of them advertising them for lower than our actual retail price, that we'd have to cut them off as dealers. and we never had to cut off one person as a dealer. They always stayed good dealers, and they were just good dealers, good honest people. And I never did lose any accounts. We'd ship everything COD. We had some complaints about that, of course, shipping COD to dealers that we had for all these years. But we had a few dealers that we would ship to with open accounts, and they'd pay them within 15 days of the time they received the order. And we always kept our payments coming in. We never fell behind on the payments from our dealers. And I know one day we'd been up to the Kenton Nationals up there and just gotten home. Been home about 3 or 4 days, and a man called us and said, there's a dealer up here I think you're selling lights to. Said, do you sell to McKinney up here? And I said, yes, we do. He said, well, he passed away. This was just a man that was a customer of ours. We sold him lights regularly at Kenton National. And he had the obligation he felt to call us and tell us about that dealer passing away. And so we had just shipped him over $3,400 worth of merchandise just 2 days before he'd called. Well, we knew he'd get it within 2 days. So I waited till the next morning, and my wife and I left to go up there in the van that we had, and we drove to New York nonstop. And we'd stop in the rest areas and rest a few hours, and then we'd go on a trip. We got up there close to where they lived, and I called the lady, and they had just had his funeral that day. And I told her who I was, and I told her that she'd just gotten an order of merchandise from us, I'm sure. And she said, yes, we did, and said, I don't know what we're going to do with it, so we're not going to be able to make any more shows. I told her I was already in New York, and I guess she wondered how I would do that. But this man that called us gave us a good warning of that, and we got up there the next day after the funeral, and she showed us the orders there. They had, some of it was unpacked, but most of it was unpacked and still in the boxes. So I had the invoice there, and we got up enough product to make up for the $3,400 that we had sold her, and took it in to her and showed her the invoice, and she watched us load it all up, and she was so happy that we had come up there to get that merchandise, because she said, I would never have got that paid back. I would have had to sell it to get money for funeral expenses. But she was just a real good, an Arkansas customer, if you would. They were just good people. And that was kind of the story of our light business. There's lots of stories I could tell on each individual part and how we acquired them, and the way we sold them, the markups they had, and all that. But that's the main story about Nite Lite. But the night that we took inventory, that was in 1988. We sold, or there was a fella come by the next spring and wanted to know if we'd sell our business. Well, we had 94 employees, and I was just loaded up with work, trying to manage the employees, and Ray was loaded up, and he was the only person that we had that had a name handle on his name. We just let the one that had been there the longest kind of supervise their department, and it always worked out for us. We didn't have anybody fussing about somebody having a title and they didn't have a title. It all worked out for us, and we just did it in an old country way. And so I came in from inventory doing that night. I got in the house about 11:15, and my wife was sitting here in the living room, and I came in and I said, Ken Lou, I said, we're not gonna own this a year from now. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, we're not gonna own this a year from now. I said, we're gonna have to sell it. I said, I just can't take care of all the business that we're getting. And I said, we're gonna have to sell it. And she put up quite an argument with it, and I don't blame her. I would have argued too. And we had a party out at the house for our family that night. A few nights after we sold the business, they went ahead and bought the business for what we'd asked for it. And they wanted to buy it in two sections of the business. They wanted to buy the retail business, all the catalog sales that we had, buy the catalog and everything, and pay for the future catalogs and everything. And all we'd keep is the manufacturing of the Nite Lite. We had built a new 10,000 square foot, 10,200 and something square foot building down on Porter Road in the business section of Clarksville down here. And that was going to be my manufacturing business that I'd moved down there. We did this all on a promise that he would buy the business from us. And so the first day of August, we moved all of our manufacturing facility down there and kept about 24 employees out of the 93 that we had. And so we moved the manufacturing business down there, and we had written up in the contract, of the sales contract, that he would have the right to buy it back within 2 years, anytime he wanted it in that 2 years, for a certain dollar price. And it was an individual family that bought the business. He lived in Little Rock. And so we sold it to him, and they kept the business and kept running the business out there. And we sold the business, the complete business, to him, manufacturing and all, 2 years later to the date that we had sold the first time. And so that was our day in the Nite Lite business. The fur prices had dropped that year. Unbeknownst to me, I had no idea they would drop. But some of the mink farms had been raided up in Oregon and Washington and burned out, and fur prices dropped pretty low. So I guess that may have started some downturn in the business. And the family that bought it, though, they ran it for, oh Lord, this is not 2006. They ran it for 26, 36, 30, 38 years. So they had a good income from it, I'm sure, and it was a great business for them. And I don't know if they're operating any business now or not, but I know the fellow that bought it from us has passed away, and he's got some children that were left running it here, and don't know just what's going on with the business now. But Nite Lite was a super good product for us. We loved our employees, and I think they loved us. We really had a good business relationship with them, and that's about the story that I have to tell. And if there's anything else, you can ask me right now.
Well, I was kind of curious about what. So when you started making the lights, did you pretty much own the market as far as battery powered lights, or when did competition? When did you get some competition that came in?
We actually had competition in place across the nation. A fellow by the name of Bill Boatman, who later became a real good friend of mine. He and I were real good friends. He had a business that had gone on when we started in business. They were celebrating 26 years in the coon light business and the coon hunting business. And he made a coon light by the name of Coon Beam. And he had advertised it for about 2 years before he had any to sell. I've heard that it caused some problems in the sale of his light. He had troubles getting them manufactured, just like I had troubles getting our light manufactured. But I didn't advertise our light for sale until after we had the mold completed and had batteries in the house, and had headlights in the lamps. But Bill Boatman had a good catalog business going, and he owned the catalog business in the coon hunting world. He became a good friend of mine. We sat up right across from each other at the Kenton Nationals, and he would sell lights and I would sell lights. And I don't know how many lights he sold, but I know we were doing real well. And he became a real good friend of mine. He has passed away since then. I didn't go to his funeral. He was in Ohio, and I didn't know of it till he had already passed away. And there's a lot of stories I can tell you about some of the things we did along the way on our catalogs, how we got our cover catalog prints, you know. We had another manufacturer of lights called Kohler Mine Light Company. We had another mine light company. I've forgotten the name of them, I'm sorry, but I don't remember the name of them. But they were in business for years and years, and they had a real good light. Kohler light was it was a heavier battery than ours. We had made ours to be lighter weight, and it would burn longer. However, theirs was a 4-volt light, and a real nice, well-molded headlamp. You couldn't ask for a nicer molded headlamp than theirs. And it would focus from a wide light from shining a tree down to a real fine spotlight by just turning the switch knob on it. It was a real well-engineered light. And they would sell their dealers 6 lights at a time. They would sell those to the dealers. You had to be a dealer, and you had to sell them for 6 lights. You'd have to buy 6 lights at a time. Well, when I first started in business, I had asked them if we could sell their light in our catalog. And they said, well, you're a competitor. You can't sell our light in your catalog. So it wasn't but just a few days after that, a fella called me. He was in Fort Smith. He said, Dayne said, I'm a dealer for Nite Lite, and he was a dealer for our business too. He said, I'm a dealer for Nite Lite and I'm a dealer for Wheat Light. Well, I had known that for a couple of years. He said, I don't know if I can sell all these 6 lights at a time in the time frame that they give me. Said, would you be able to buy half of them or all of them that I want to sell? I wanted to unbox them. They came shipped in a regular shipping crate. And he said, I won't unbox them. You'll just get them right out of the shipping container with me. And I'll sell you any amount of them that you want. And so we started doing that. Well, I knew who was the dealers, the best dealers in the country. There was one in Mississippi that I knew real well because he was our dealer too. So I contacted him to see if he'd sell us the Kohler lights. Yeah, he said, I'll be glad to. He said, I'm selling about 30 of them a year. And I said, well, you're selling that many night lights, aren't you? He said, oh yeah, I'm selling more than that. I said, well, I'll buy all I'll buy all the Kohler lights that you want to sell if you'll sell them to me at your cost of them. He thought about it a few minutes, and he said, well, I believe I'll do that. He said, I'll just sell them to you. He said, now, you'll have to come down here and pick them up. I said, well, now, your orders may go from buying 30 a year to maybe 200 of them a year. And he thought about it, and he said, well, that'll be all right. So they'll appreciate me more. So we started doing that with all those Kohler dealers. We knew everybody that was advertising in the magazines. So we contacted every one of them. When they'd call in an order, we'd ask them about that. And they'd say, well, I knew that you probably didn't get an order into Kohler because you were a competitor of theirs. And I said, no, I didn't, but I'm buying them from different people. And I said, if you want to sell some of yours, just let me know how many you got to sell, and I'll buy them from you. So at one point in time, there was a dealer in Muscatine, Iowa, and I called him. He called me, rather, and asked me if I needed any night lights. And I said, well, I can use some. It's coming up the fall season. I said, I said, it's coming up the fall season. I could use some. He said, how many do you want? And I said, about 500 of them. He said, 500? And I said, yeah, we getting where we're having trouble getting all that we can sell. And he said, well, said, you'll have to send me a check for those 500 lights. Well, they didn't give but about 30% off on their lights. So that was going to cost me a lot of money. So I said, well, I'll wire you the money tonight. I'll go downtown and wire the money to you. And I wired the money to him. And he called me back when he got it. He said, well, I'll send this check to Kohler, or I'll send the money, my check to Kohler to pay for these lights that I hadn't got but about 40 lights coming. And I said, well, that'll be fine. Just let me know when you're going to get yours. I'll be there the day they deliver them and pick them up. And went on it took them about 4 weeks to deliver their lights, where it took us about 4 days to deliver our lights. And I think that's one thing that helped us in our sales, is we shipped things out the day that we got the order in. And he called me the next day after he got those lights in, and he said, Dayne, I've got the lights in. Well, I was beginning to wonder, because I had all that money tied up in lights and didn't have one of them. But anyway, we went up there that night and picked up the lights, and that was the biggest order of wheat lights that we'd ever had. And I got a call, about 2 weeks later, from the general manager of Kohler Company, and they wanted to talk to me personally. And so I talked to him. He said, I'm the general manager and manager of sales of Kohler Company. He said, you've been advertising these Kohler lights for years. I said, are you selling many of them? I said, well, we're selling enough of them. He said, well, how are you getting them? And I just told him. I said, well, y'all have a minimum of 6 lights per customer. I said, you've got some customers that can't sell those 6 lights within 6 months of the time they get them. And I said, we've got an open order with anybody that wants to sell us sweet lights. We'll buy any of them that they have. If they want to sell them and take cash for them and send them to you, I said, we'll take whatever extra lights they have and we'll sell them ourselves. That boy, there was silence on the line for a while. And he said, when could I come down and see you? And I said, well, anytime. I said, I'm here 7 days a week. He said, well, I'll be down this Friday and visit with you. I told him where we lived, and he came down the next Friday and had on a fine business suit, and brand new shoes, and he looked a little different than I did. I was wearing my jeans, he was old jeans, and the T-shirt, and he introduced himself when he come to the door. I welcomed him in. He came in the house here. He came in after he came to the door and came in the house here. And we sat down in there in the living room and talked for probably about 2 hours. And he was wanting to know how in the world. He had ordered a catalog from us and saw the number of pages we had on our night lights, the Nite Lite products, and every little thing that we sold. And he brought his briefcase in, he got that catalog out, and he said, I guess the reason you sell so many lights is because of a catalog like this. He said, I didn't understand that you had a big catalog like this. We didn't want to go over 100 pages in our catalog. At the time, we were putting out a 96-page catalog. And so we printed it in color and had it printed up north at one of the big businesses up there. So we talked a long time there in the living room, and he said, what if we would sell you all the lights you wanted? Would you pay 95% of the cost of them, what we sell to the other dealers? I said, no. I said, we buy everything at cost just like they do. And there was a little more silence on the line, and he, so to speak, and he said, "Well," said, "I'll have to talk to the president of the company about it," but said, "We may be interested in selling them to you." He said, "You're the biggest dealer that we have." He said, "We can tell by the sales to all these little dealers around the nation that you've sold more night lights than more wheat lights than any of them have, or all of them put together." And I grinned, and I said, "Well, we appreciate selling them." I said, "It may have not been the way that we should have bought them, but I said it was a legal way, and I said we'll continue to do that. And if you get a big order for some, you may not want to ship them, but if you do," I said, "we'll have an order with somebody else for a few lights, and we'll still get the lights." And he left smiling, went back to Marlborough, Massachusetts, where he was from, called me back the next week. He said, "Dayne," said, "you can buy all the wheat lights from us you want at the regular dealer price." And we had a conversation. I told him I appreciated that. So from then on, we bought them just like anybody else, and we sold more lights than anybody, and it pretty well shut their dealerships down. I don't know what they did to their smaller dealers, but we just about quit seeing advertisements on them. And then the Boatman Company, he sold lights right up until the time that he passed away. But his business, at the time we sold Nite Lite, we were doing 80 to 83% of all the light business in the United States. And before that, he was doing 90% of all the lights that were sold in the United States. And it didn't cause any hard feelings there. He understood what we were doing and how we were doing it, and he realized that it was all fair trade. And he's always a good friend of mine. Me and him, we'd talk to each other about every 2 weeks about the businesses, you know. And he was just a good gentleman. He was a good man. He didn't like it too well when we first went into business, but he got to where he liked us real well, knew my wife real well, and he introduced me to his wife, and my wife and his wife, they both visited my phone sometimes. We had a good relationship, and those were the two dealers with the lights that we were selling. We didn't sell the KW Lamp Company lights. That was the name of them, KW Lamp Company. They had a good light, good, well-engineered light that worked but pretty much the same as what the Kohler light did. But they wouldn't give you as much percentage off on the lights, so we never bothered with dealing with them. But eventually, one of the products that we had manufactured for us, it wasn't manufactured just for us, but I did a lot of research into the battery business while we were in business, and early on we found the people that made Kohler light batteries weighed the same as the original Kohler batteries, would fit on the same headpiece, but they were gel batteries. They wouldn't leak acid. And of course, that's what we were producing, was lights that didn't leak acid. The first year we had to sell lights that leaked acid. If you turned them upside down, they would leak some acid. But we never had any problems with them. And so we would buy the lamps that fit the Kohler light and would fit the KW light, wheat light, or not the wheat light, but KW light. And we would sell those through the mail. And we were selling quite a number of those because they were leak-proof, and they worked real well with the batteries. And so we didn't sell we could get a good discount on them and buy them much cheaper than we could the other lights, and yet we were selling the batteries for the lamps that we weren't buying from Kohler. And so it's all worked out for us. The good Lord let it work out for us. I could tell you lots of stories about the different things that we bought, and different companies we bought them from, but it took a lot of research and a lot of digging before you can find some of these products. I remember those 500 lights that we were behind. I got a call that the batteries were on board of a ship that would dock on a certain date. The fellow that sold me those, we became one of his biggest dealers in the United States on the batteries that we were selling. And he called me and told me when the batteries were going to be in dock there. And I said, well, I'll be there to pick them up so we can get them in stock here and ship them out the next day. And he laughed. He said, it's going to take you a long time to ship 500 lights, isn't it? And I said, well, we can probably get them shipped within 2 days' time. And so I had an old Pontiac car that I owned, and I hooked on to a U-Haul trailer here in Clarksville. It was a four-wheel trailer, tandem trailer, and I drove to California nonstop. I left early one morning, got there late that afternoon, and I got there late just before they released those batteries from quarantine, and we picked those batteries up late that afternoon, and I started driving back home. And I remember I come across the Golden Gate Bridge at 5 o'clock on that afternoon. And I'll never forget that, because I'd been across that bridge before, but I'd always pick my times when I was going to cross it. It was never early in the morning going to work time, or never coming home to work from work at coming home time. But that day I got caught right in the middle of that bridge, and it took me several minutes to cross it, but I made it on out and made it on home. And I got here about 6 o'clock the second morning after I left out there. We unloaded those 500 batteries, and that night, whenever I came in from the shop out there, I'd called UPS and I told them that we'd have a big order going out that night, and if they would wait until about as late as they could run their trucks that night to pick them up. He came up, picked up all 500 of those lights at one pickup, and they had to send one of those trailer trucks up here to hold all 500 of them. And it's just I can tell stories like that all night of things that went on during the business. That it was just part of growth, and it was the fun years, and we really loved those fun years, and we've enjoyed some good years afterwards.
Would you mind telling me about the dogs that you used to hunt?
Oh, I started coon hunting when I was about 14. I never could afford a good coon dog. I always had to buy a young dog and try to train him, and I never did have a real good coon dog when I was trying to train him. I never did have time to hunt. And I coon hunted every year from the time I was 14 till I was about I was about 30, I guess. It was the 1960s, 1966. I started going to coon hunt events. I'd been around some of the coon hunts, but I never did have a dog to hunt in them because they weren't good enough. So I was working for this construction company in Russellville at that time, and for the locking dams on the Arkansas River. I finally got up enough money to buy a Jip that was a good coon hound. I spent $400 on her, and she won a lot of hunts for me, and she made night champion in just a few hunts, and that was the start of my real coon hunting career. Was right there. I bought another dog. I bought him. It was on up in the 60s, late 60s. I bought him from a fellow over at Dover, Arkansas here. We'd coon hunted that night. I was trying him out. I wanted to give him all the trial I could. And the little dog wouldn't bark a lot on track. Of course, in a coon hunt, they've got to bark on track or you can't strike them, and you can't afford to wait till one trees before you tree him. So I was going to those coon hunts with old Yodeler. And I hunted till 3 o'clock that morning. And this old boy that owned the dog, he'd just traded for him that 2 days before that. And he priced the dog to me for a good price. And said I wouldn't sell this dog at all if he'd open more on track. Said he'd open every time on track. But said you'll have to get him when he first opens on track. He'll ball out and open on track. And he said you better strike him right then because he's going to tree. Said he's got a tree located and he's going to tree him. Said he's a sure tree dog. And said every time he trees there'll be a coon there. And we hunted him long enough that night. We treed 3 coons. He treed 2 of them by himself, and the other dogs never barked on it. And I knew he had a good hound there, so I paid for the dog for it. So I paid him for the dog, brought him home. I got home about 4:15 that morning, and I wasn't working that day. And told my wife that I was going to a coon hunt in Fayetteville that night. So I took the dog. A friend of mine up at Ozark, he had a dog, a Walker dog, and I had this blue dog. We took off for Fayetteville. Got up there and it was snowing. There's about 4 inches of snow on the ground. And so we drawed out in the cast that night. There were 21 dogs in the hunt. It's a small hunt for back then. Usually there's a lot of dogs in the hunt. But there were just 21 dogs in that hunt, 4 dogs to a cast. So we hunted. Some of the casts had 3 dogs, some of them had 4. But we hunted all night that night. The 3 dogs I was hunting against, they'd open on track, run a track to a tree, and never could tree it, and it wouldn't solid on the tree. So they scratched out all the other 3 dogs were. The old boy that was leading the cast, he said, Mr. Phillips said, if you want to, we'd start walking back to the truck. We had about 10 minutes left in the hunt. Back then we hunted 3 hours. And I was the only dog left in the hunt. We got up to where we could see the tail lights on my pickup, and old Yoder started opening. He started opening. He opened about 6 or 8 times on the trail, and then he shut up. I struck him, got 100 yards for the strike, and he treed in about 3 minutes there. Treed, and the judge said, "You're sure you want to tree him?" He said, "You've got to cast 1 right now with 0 points." I said, "I want to tree him." I said, "He's treed right now." I said, "I want to tree him." He said, "All right." We waited the 5 minutes that they had to tree. So we waited the 5 minutes till that he had to tree on that coon. We walked up and there was a big old hollow tree. Just you could thump on it and you could hear the hollow sound in it. We walked up the tree and the old judge looked up and he said, "There's the coon." All I was looking at was how big the tree was and how he's going to get circle points. He looked up and saw the coon. He was the first man in the cast that saw the coon. So I got plus points, and we went to the clubhouse that night. It was about 3:30, I guess, 3:30 when we left that coon out that night. And I won first place with that little dog in the whole coon hunt. His only dog treed, that one coon was. So I hunted him 3 or 4 times that week, and went to coon hunt down in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And I was hunting with the dog that had won 2nd place in the world coon hunt that year. And we went out to Wolf Creek, I believe it was Wolf Creek buck. He's from out of Memphis, Tennessee. And the old boy came up in a Cadillac car. And he wasn't pulling the trailer or nothing. We wondered where that Cadillac came from. Well, he got out, and everybody else, or a lot of the guys at the hunt knew him from seeing him in other coon hunts. They said, that's old Wolf Creek buck. Said, he'll win this hunt. Said, he's just won second place in a world hunt. So we went coon hunting. And we went hunting that night. We treed 4 coons that night. I had 400 strike points. No, I didn't. I had 300 strike points, and I had 200 and something tree points. And all of my tree points had come when old Wolf Creek buck had scratched out. And he scratched out, and the other dogs all scratched out, and I was hunting by myself again. And I scored 625 points that night. And come in there at night, we had 100 and something dogs in that hunt. And old Yodeler was the first place winner again. And then I went to another hunt the next weekend, and he finished with plus points in that hunt. And I was third place, and so that finished him into the night champion in the first 3 hunts that I hunted him in 2 weeks and 1 day. I'd finished him out. He was a good coon dog. And then I got old Trailer. When we first opened Nite Lite, we had 6 lights that we hadn't shipped that week, and we went over to Ada, Oklahoma. I stayed here and made some lights up, and was making lights when my wife and oldest son went to Ada, Oklahoma to a wild coon hunt over there. And they had a spot rented there in that little building. Well, you didn't have to rent a spot. You just had to say you wanted one. And you could set up in the building. There was a cattle barn over there where they'd set up. They had a big hunt there. So Bobby and Canaloo set up, and they had those 6 lights to sell. They had some dog leashes and dog collars that we bought from Conway from Leather Brothers. Leather Brothers are still big business. They're still in business and doing real well. They were real good friends of mine, and we took those collars and leashes and couplers over there. So we sold a few couplers and a few leashes. We didn't sell a light. Canaloo tried to sell them. Bobby Dayne talked to them, tell them about them, and we didn't sell a light. So they come home and said, well, we're not going to any more shows with you. Said, you'd have to take your own lights. I said, well, I'll take them up to Green Forest next weekend. They's having a world champion bench show up there. And so I put those 6 lights in the back of a little old 79 Ford pickup and had a little old camper cover on it. Took some dog leashes and couplers, and we went up to the coon hunt. Got up there, and they had a big crowd of people there. They always had a big crowd of people there. They'd have over 100 dogs a night in the hunts up there. And they'd hunt Friday, Saturday night, both hunt nights. And so I entered old dog that I'd bought from, they had been up, they'd been up to Ada, Oklahoma to that wild coon hunt there, and they come back and told me about a dog they'd heard about up there that was for sale. He was a blue-ticked hound, 2.5 years old, and Bobby Dayne said, I believe he's a good dog. He said, there's an Indian man up there that owns him. He said, I think he's a good dog. I went up there, and I had gone to Ada, Oklahoma. I went to Ada, Oklahoma, and asked that about his dog. I hunted him over there in that over in the river bottoms, over there by Ada, Oklahoma, and he never barked a bark all night long. We hunted him 2.5 hours. He never opened his mouth. There's a lot of deer in the woods. We saw a lot of deer. He never opened his mouth. And we got back to his house, and old boy said, well, said, I know you didn't see nothing out of my dog tonight, but said, he's a straight coon dog. Said, he ain't going to bark at a deer. He ain't going to tree a possum. Said, he's a straight coon dog. Well, that's when I'm beginning to wonder about him then. I didn't know this what to think about the dog. Had to go all those times out in that bottom full of deer and not bark on them. I said, well, how much do you want for him? He said, I'll take $250 for him. And so I said, well, I'll give you a check and I'll date it 2 weeks from tonight. And you can cash it anytime that 2 weeks after that 2 weeks is up. I said, I'll keep him. And so I bought the dog, brought him home, and me and my brother-in-law went coon hunting that night down there in the Arkansas River swamps down there. I knew we could strike a coon down there. And I took him coon hunting, and my brother-in-law had his little walker dog. We didn't much want to turn out of the truck till that little walker dog struck. He run down there about 300 yards and just locked up on a tree and just treed just as hard as he could tree. I thought, boy, that ain't no good. That blue dog hadn't barked a lick yet. Pretty soon I looked down the road there, and here come that dog back to me just running as hard as he could. I could see my eyes bobbing up and down the road. He got to me and he hunkered down on his little haunches and crawled by me and run right on back to the truck and got in the dog box. I looked at Bob and I said, reckon what we've got treed down there. Bob said, I'll bet it's a possum. And so we went down there, and sure enough, that little dog of his treed the possum in about a 12-foot sapling there. You could nearly reach it. So I got to thinking maybe I had a pretty good dog then. Well, I hunted him the rest of that week. I took him to coon hunt up there at Green Forest in that night. Well, we got up there and I had that dog, and a buddy of mine had his dog. We got out of the truck before we got up there to the cattle barn where the dogs were up in the chutes up there, up in those pens up there. Well, there's several people come met me down there and wanted to see my light. Because my light hadn't been advertised in the American Cooner that week. And they hadn't seen it. It wasn't out when they was over there in Ada, Oklahoma. So they come and wanted to see my light. I went down there and showed it to them. And before we left the truck, we had all 6 of those lights sold. We sold several dog leashes and couplers and everything, just what we brought up there in the truck. And so that was the start of my coon hunting at the competition hunts. We just barely got started with the night lights then, you know. And I hunted Trailer. I hunted him in 3 hunts. He made night champion in 3 hunts. He won a first, a second, and another second. And he made night hunt with 110 points. You had to have, over 100 points. So he made night champion, and I hunted him in 8 hunts. You had to win 5 night champion hunts to make a night champion a grand night champion. I hunted him in 8 hunts, and he won 5 first places in those 8 hunts. And I enjoyed coon hunting. I enjoyed coon hunting about as much as any kind of hunting. And I got started after we started Nightlight. I started in turkey hunting a little bit, and Bill, can't think of his name right now. Bill Lohman had a Lohman manufacturing company up in Neosho, Missouri, and he manufactured turkey calls. He called me one day and wanted me to come up to turkey camp with him. And I'd never ever turkey hunted except just 2 or 3 times when I went with my oldest son turkey hunting. He was, that was 1960. No, it was 1974. My oldest son was 18 that spring, I think. And I said, well, I hadn't coon hunted I hadn't turkey hunted with anyone except my son. I said I'd usually just go take him out there because he didn't have a driver's license to start driving until he's 16. And so I said he could drive on a hardship license up until between 14 and 16. And he said, well, has he killed any turkeys? And I said, well, he killed one when he was 15, and he's killed a few since then. And I said, I've took him out hunting a few times, but I said, I've never turkey hunted. And he said, well, bring your son up and let him hunt, and you can come hunt too. So I said, well, what days have you got open for us to come hunt? He said, you can come the first day. I said, we won't have but about 15 in camp probably. So they'll always invite a bunch of riders and some people that's got catalogs. Well, we'd put his products in our catalog. And so I told him I'd come up. We went up there, and that started my coon hunting career right then. Not coon hunting, I'm sorry. So that started my turkey hunting career right then. And went up there, we turkey hunted. Bill was a good caller. He was a real good caller. But his problem was he wanted to call all the time. If he heard a turkey gobble, he was gonna call back to him right just immediately. We hunted 3 days up there. And that first morning, I bet we heard at least 20 gobblers right the first time we stopped the truck. Lord, I'd never heard turkeys gobble like that. I looked at Bob and Dayne, he looked at me, and we thought, man, we were going to kill out there in the first 20 minutes of the hunt. We went and got set up on a turkey. We got in about 75 yards of him, plenty close. That guide of ours, Bill, said, he started cutting down on that turkey calling. He done every call in the book, from the fly down cackle right on up to the gobbler gobbling, you know. I mean, he done every one of them calls just about in order that they should have been, I guess, if he's calling to a turkey and wanted to get him in. That gobbler shut up when he got to the ground and never said another word. Well, we had 18, 20 more turkeys gobbling off in the distance there, so we had plenty to go to. Well, that was the beginning of my turkey hunting career. Was hunting with Bill Lohman. We got back to camp that third afternoon, and we left and come home. And Bobby told me, he said, "Had you ever been out turkey hunting with anybody that called like that?" I said, "Well, I hadn't been, but I hadn't been turkey hunting either, except just with you." He said, "Well, I don't call like that." I said, "I just call like to make the turkey come in." Well, I got hooked on turkey hunting, seemed like. I wanted to go back again. So the next year he called me and wanted to know if we wanted to come up. I said, "Yeah, we can come up. We'll both come up." And so we went back again. He met me up there, and when I got out of the truck, we walked up to camp there. We camped up there in an old, it was an old camp along the lakes up there at Camden, Missouri. And there was about 15 people there hunting. And so he introduced me to a young fella that he just started guiding for Bill. Said he was a good turkey hunter from over around the Osho there. So he said he'd call me in a turkey. Said he's pretty sure he'd call me in a turkey in a 3-day time. So Bobby and I went with him. And, well, Bobby went with another guide up there. I went with this fella. Third day of the hunt, we called up, we heard a turkey gobble. That's the first turkey we'd heard gobble off the roost. I mean, they'd gobble on the roost. They didn't want to gobble when they come down. This guy's name was Brad Harris. And so we went over and set up on the turkey. We'd been hunting about 2.5 hours that morning before we ever heard him. So we set up on him, and he called, and the turkey started coming to us. I could tell they was coming to us. he was sitting right beside me. He said, now, Dayne said, when the turkey gets within about 30 yards, he pointed to a tree down there. He said, you kill him and shoot him in the neck. Shoot at the wattles in his neck. And said, you kill him at 30 yards. And so the turkeys come in. There was 2 gobblers and 3 jakes and 2 or 3 hens. There's a lot of turkeys come in. So they got up about 30 yards, and I shot that front gobbler. Killed him. We both jumped up hollering, and I was happy as I could be. So we run down there to the gobbler and took him back to camp. And so my turkey hunting career started right there with that camp. And I got back home that year. Our season come in here, it was going when we went up there. And I killed a jake over by Turkey Mountain where we'd bought a little farm. It wasn't on our farm, it was joined the farm that we had there to it. I killed another little jake turkey. Later on in the season, I killed another jake turkey. And that was my first 3 turkeys. And that started me turkey hunting. And I don't know, turkey hunting was good. That was in 1984. It was pretty good turkey hunting here in Arkansas. And I hunted every year, and most of the time I'd kill a turkey. And I started taking Devin here, and the first morning we went turkey hunting, I was hunting on the neighbor's farm down there where I'd killed that first jake that I killed. I think he was 7 years old when we went down there. And we was going down this steep hill, and there was a big rock here that had a big shelf on it, big rock that you could walk across, and there was about 2.5 feet over the next rock over there. So I said, you wait here on this rock, and I'll jump over to that one, and I'll hold my hand out and get you, and you can jump over here. I jumped from that one rock to the other one, and I fell flat on my tail end. Hit my gun stock on that rock. I thought I'd busted it. But it wound up, only thing I'd busted was myself. And I got him over there after I'd ached in pain for a little while. We went on over to a field there where I'd killed that jake turkey. And we called for a little while, and I may be wrong on this, but we and him were set up right in a fence row, and he was hunting with a 20-gauge shotgun. And I had already killed a longbeard that year, and there was a turkey gobbling to our right down there. And I don't remember how many there was. There was 1, 2, or 3. I don't remember just how many there was. But we called a little bit. I couldn't call very good. I wasn't a real good caller. But I could call little enough, and a turkey would come if he wanted to come, and that's about the way turkey hunting is. If they want to come, they'll come. If they don't want to come, they're not going to. But he come in, and he was about, I don't know, how long far was he, 30 yards?
Every bit of it.
Yeah, he's 30, between 30 and 35 yards, say, maybe 37. I said, Devin, can you see him well enough to get on his neck there and shoot him? He said, yeah, I think I can, Papa, but that's a pretty long shot. And he just had a little old 20-gauge. He shot, and that old bird folded up. I think he was the first one through the fence to get to him. We got over there, and we celebrated a little bit, shook hands, and I hugged him. And I told him, was that your first Arkansas bird? And I think it was his first Arkansas bird. He had been hunting with his daddy down in Texas, and they'd killed some turkeys down there. And so we got on up to the house, took some real good pictures with turkey, and the next year his daddy was working up here at a ranch up at Ozark, and he was guiding hunters up there on that ranch that they hunted on. And Devin went with me again. He was 8 years old then. And we went up to the top of the mountain, Turkey Mountain, that year. I had bought a farm up there at that time, and so he was hunting up on top where I hunted, deer hunted, and I'd seen some turkeys up there, and I'd killed my 2 turkeys up there that year and the year before. And so I took him up there on top. We sat up under a cedar tree there, and that turkey came in, and he shot him, killed him, and that was his first longbeard in Arkansas. So I got started. That's the way I got started and then we started going out of state. We went to Nevada, Nevada, Kansas, Oklahoma. Brad Harris and I was hunting together then, and
Nebraska.
And Nebraska instead of Nevada. It was Nebraska instead of Nevada. I get my names mixed up. I'm getting old.
Alabama with Doug Camp.
Yeah, Doug Camp, he was one of the best turkey hunters I ever went with, I guess. He didn't call much, but he knew how to call. And he'd killed about 380 turkeys, I think. And he could be carrying his gun across his shoulder and get upon a gobbler in the woods and him fly off, and he could pull his gun up and get a shot at him and still kill the bird. He was the quickest man with a shotgun I ever saw in life. He had a book out. Do you remember, Devin, what that book was called? Turkey Hunting with Doug Camp or something like that?
I believe so.
And it was a good book to read. It was just an old country boy talking about coon hunting. And he had a little manufacturing company. I don't think he manufactured any of the cards himself. He just hired some of his friends that coon hunted to manufacture the calls, and then he sold them. Doug Camp he became a real good friend of mine. He would make a lot of the shows around the state. We'd go to those shows. Little Devin was just, I don't know, he wasn't very old.
That's probably 10.
Plus 10, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably 10.
10 plus. He'd come up to his booth there, and he'd start scratching on a slate call. Oh, Doug, look over there at him. He'd say, man, he can call with that slate call. And he'd keep scratching on it. He'd give him a call. I don't know if it was the first year we was there or not, but I believe it was. Said, you practice on that call, said you can win some calling contests with him. Well, we got to be good friends of Doug Camp's. He invited me down to turkey hunt with him, with a fellow by the name of DeLauder. John DeLauder was his name. And he invited me down there to turkey hunt with him. And I'd go down with him. I went down there with him 5 years, I guess. And he got to where he'd go turkey hunting over in Oklahoma, and we'd go together. He and Bobby and some of his friends from down in Oklahoma would go turkey hunting over there. And we'd go to a place over there where Brad Harris and I went one time. And we'd kill turkeys over there. We went to New Mexico. Turkey hunted over there. And I remembered Doug Camp, 2 of his friends, and Bobby Dayne and I were the only ones out there. We had 2 little old tents set up out there in the wilderness, and we was hunting out there on an Indian reservation. Well, Doug, like I say, he didn't call much, but he'd hunted those 3 days and hadn't got on a gobbler those 3 days. Maybe he'd heard some gobble. He'd get up to them and start calling. They'd shut up. It was getting late in the season. And Bobby Dayne went around with one of the men that come out there with Doug. They got up in a little old slough of a place there. I said a slough. It was a branch-like place that was running down between 2 bluffs there, or big rock cliffs there that was probably 40 feet high, I guess. And there was some trees up at the head of that bluff, and turkeys had been roosted there. Well, they knew they they'd probably fly down, come down that little draw with them, get water. So Bobby Dayne sat up there and started calling. Bobby Dayne, he was a young fella then, but he didn't call much. He was a good turkey hunter. He was a good turkey hunter. And he sat up there and called, and him and the other boy was calling there together. That other fella said to Bobby Dayne, he said, I saw that turkey come down between the two bushes up there. He's going to come down on your side of that branch. He said, you can kill him when he gets here. Well, the bird come down and Bobby Dayne killed him. That was the only bird we killed on that whole trip. Was out there 3 days. We come in that night, dressed the turkey, and we all had turkey breasts. We was sitting there, and it was about 8 o'clock that night, 9:30, 10, 10, just nearly dark. And we were sitting around the campfire, and the conversation kind of dulled down. And old Doug Camp looked up. He said, fellers, said, I sure would like to see that old Alabama line. So we all agreed we'd come home the next morning, and we did. And I don't know, that showed a lasting relationship with Doug Camp. He was a friend of mine for life. The last time I saw Doug, he was going to a turkey hunting show out at Oklahoma City. And he called me that afternoon. He left, and he said, Dayne, said I've got two buddies that went out in Oklahoma with us, or out in New Mexico with us. Said they're going to be with me tonight. He said, have you got a place you can put us up for tonight? I said, I sure have, Doug. I said, y'all come by. I'd enjoy visiting with you. He said, well, we're going to be there about 8 o'clock tonight. So Catalina and I had bought a home out in the country out here. It was a little bit bigger than this one, and it had 4 bedrooms in it. And so we was out there, and Doug Camp come driving up in his Datsun pickup that evening. He drove up, and he told us that night after he got there and we'd eat supper. Wife cooked supper for him. And we had a good get-together there after supper, and we was all sitting around talking. And Doug told me, he said, Dayne, said, this may be the last time I get to see you. He said, I've got cancer. And boy, I tell you what, you could have knocked me over with a rock. He was a big, healthy fella that you'd never think of having cancer. He went on out and did the show in Oklahoma. By this time, he'd given Devin, I don't know how many calls, but several calls.
Yeah, probably somewhere around 10, I'd say.
Probably, about 10 calls. He'd given Bobby Dayne calls. He'd given me calls. He was he was a good friend. He was a good call maker, too. He was a good call maker. He was just a good friend. And he went out to that Oklahoma show and come back through, and I invited him to come back by and spend the night with us when he come back home, and he'd have about a day getting back home. He come back that night. It's Sunday night, and we was sitting in there in the living room, and he said, Dayne, said, I don't know when I'll see you again. Said it may be up in heaven first. He told him he had cancer of the lungs. And he went on home, and he called me probably about 6 months later. Said, Dayne, this is Doug. Said, I hope you can understand me. I said, yeah, I can understand you pretty well. He said, Dayne, said, this will be the last time you hear from me, probably. He said, I'm going to go to the hospital. He said, I'm probably not going to make it back home. And his wife called a few days later and said he'd passed away. I made a lot of good friends turkey hunting. Made a lot of good friends. Last time I went to Turkey Federation meeting over in Nashville, Tennessee, Devin took me over there. By that time, I was getting where I couldn't walk real well. And I don't know how old I was then. I was up in my mid to late 80s probably. Oh, probably about 84, something like that. I mean, I said 80, it was 24. It was about 1924 when we went over there. He and his wife and myself went over there. And we visited a lot of the turkey hunters back. His old turkey hunters that had been there when it wasn't a real expensive show to go to and set up at. I'd always buy a few turkey calls. We'd always visit with old timers that had been over there, Will Primos, and he was the one that I knew the best. He come by here, spent the night with us, he and one of his friends. When he first went into the call business, he had 3 turkey calls, was all the calls that he had. He had a double reed, and a triple reed, and a single reed. That was only 3 calls that he had on the market. And I called him and wanted to put them in the catalog, so he sent me an order of them, and I put them in the catalog, and we'd sold them that fall. And we'll come by here next year after the Federation show, and he come by here and called me, come by and looked at the store. We had the store built in, and it was just built here in the yard. We just had a little old small store building, and we became real good friends. And Wilbur spent the night with us that night. We got up the next morning. My wife had sausage and egg waffles. Sausage and egg. What is it where you flip them over? I don't remember. Sausage and egg. Well, I can't say what the name of it is. It's a waffle. It wasn't a waffle. It was a pancake. You bend it over sausage and egg and made a... Yep. I don't remember the name of it. But anyway, she made that for him for breakfast and then fried eggs. Had the whole shooting match for him for breakfast that morning. He ate breakfast, and that old boy that was with him ate breakfast. And they ate till they was full, and we sat around and visited a long time that morning, and he left then. He said, Miss Phillips said, you make some of the best gravy and biscuits I ever eat. And said, we'll be back by here sometime to see you, or I'll see you at the next turkey show. I had met him down at the turkey show the spring before that, just about a month before that. Wilbur and I got to be good friends, and I'd see him every year down there at the turkey show, and Devin would take me by there. I had to be on a cane a lot of the times, and I made the turkey shows, but I just visited mostly with the old people that I knew, you know. There was a fella down in Louisiana that I visited with, and there was 3 or 4 box call makers that I visited with. Fell out in Colorado that I visited with quite a bit. He and I went down in Louisiana and turkey hunted twice together. We drove down there. That was back when I was feeling pretty good. I could drive then. We drove down there and hunted on some places that he knew, the people that owned their own places to turkey hunt in Florida. And they were good places to hunt, you know. And we went down there one morning on a place. He just owned 80 acres in Florida. But we went out there to hunt on it. It was an old boy that worked for the Game and Fish Commission that got invited us down there, and he knew this fella and knew he had some turkeys there. He was I don't know what you'd call him, but he was a fellow with the Game and Fish in Alabama that made all the meetings and met with everybody, you know, and he was the one that did the radio shows and TV shows and things for the Alabama Game and Fish Commission. I still get a Christmas card from him every year. That's been a long time ago. And one time we went down there and we set up on this boy's 80-acre farm. And set up. I made a call and a turkey flew down. He gobbled on the ground and he was coming. And I thought, well, I'm going to get that gobbler pretty quick. Well, I heard something kept coming up to me. He wasn't gobbling. Well, I got kind of frightened about it. He got up running as far as from me to you there, about 5 yards. I flipped my light on his bobcat. He's just fixing to have breakfast. Oh, Lord. But me and Bob both killed. I called up a turkey later that morning. That old boy had a shoofa patch down there. He said, they'll come into that shoofa patch sometime today. And he said, if you just wait there long enough, I think you can kill one. Well, I still wasn't calling the very best, but I made what few calls I could make, and there's some turkeys come into that shoofa patch, and we both killed a turkey. I killed one on one side of that little draw, and I went with him later that afternoon, and he killed one on the other side of the draw. So we got our Florida turkey hunters, turkeys that year, and went back the next year, and he killed a turkey that year, and I didn't kill one. We went to some private land there, and he said, you going up on that private land. He had had a heart replacement, and he had to take just bukus of medicine every day to get his heart to stay in it, keeping him in shape, you know. And he lived until about 3 years ago. He was the same age I am, and I'll be 90 this fall. And he passed away when he was probably 87, somewhere about that. And he killed a turkey the next year. He went on public land there. There was a public land and a private land joined. He said, you just go on the private land up there. So there's more turkeys on there than there is down here. He said, I'm going to crawl up in this old public blind here and just sit here so that I can rest here. Said, there may be a turkey coming down this little old food plot here. He sat there, and about an hour later, I heard him shoot. And I was tickled that he'd shot. I hoped he'd hit him. And, well, it come noon. I told him I'd meet him back down there at noon. Got down there. He come down from that blind, and he'd killed him a turkey. And I was so proud for him. He didn't get to hunt a whole lot, you know. But we made those 2 hunts down in Florida together, and that was worth a bunch. That was the year that Magic Johnson signed a professional basketball contract. Later, I don't remember where he went, but he was going to school up in Michigan, and he was a famous basketball player then, and he made I guess he's probably as well known nearly as Michael Jordan is in the basketball world. But he's called Magic Johnson. And I don't know, I remember them drafted him that year because they were playing the finals of the NCAA tournament when we drove home that night. And I don't know, there's a lot of things you remember about things that you did at a certain time of the year, and a lot of them pop in your memory when you start thinking about those times again. But I enjoyed turkey hunting. Our Arkansas turkeys have gone so far down in population. Really, I think we should have closed turkey season 10, 11 years ago, probably. Just either closed it or cut it down to one bird a season. We could pretty well kill 2 birds a season every year. You had to kill one bird one day, and then you could kill another one the next day if you knew where they were. And on Turkey Mountain, on Turkey Mountain, on our private farm up there, we could usually kill 2 turkeys in here. We had several turkeys. A lot of times you'd see 10 and 11 longbeards in one group up there when they were all together. and we had quite a few turkeys up there. So Bobby and Bruce and Devin and I, we could all kill 2 turkeys. That sounded like a lot, but we didn't all kill them on the place there. Bobby liked to hunt in the mountains some, and Devin got to where he'd go with him in the mountains some. But I'd take Bruce and I to go together on the last day of turkey season, and usually that last day of turkey season we could kill one on Turkey Mountain. There's enough turkeys left that we could kill one. We had a good time hunting on Turkey Mountain, and we really enjoyed it. And but I think the turkey season should have probably been shut down to 0 birds per year, or 1 bird per year, maybe 10, maybe 12 years ago. It would have helped our population today, I think. Probably given us more turkeys today to hunt. A few years ago, very few years ago, they started turkey hunting in Arkansas later up in the season. We'd have to start, like this year, our turkey hunting season didn't open until the 20th day of June. I believe that's right. Isn't it, Devin?
Of April.
Of April.
At 20th, I said June. I'm a little mixed up on my years.
That's all right.
Turkey hunt didn't start till about the 20th of April, and that way we could kill 1 bird the first week. They had changed it where we could just kill 1 bird a week, and we could kill 1 bird a week, and after the next Monday we could kill a bird that week if we wanted to. Well, I pretty well killed 2 birds a year here, as long as we owned the farm up there. But we sold our farm a few years ago, and I haven't hunted up there much since then. I've got a privilege to hunt up there anytime I want to, but if I killed 1 turkey in Arkansas, there was 1 year I didn't kill a turkey in Arkansas, and I don't think I even heard a turkey gobble that year. I didn't hunt a whole lot, but I didn't hear a turkey gobble that whole year. Now, at Missouri, we heard some birds up there. But I think our turkey hunting needed to follow. If there's a state that I would say they needed to follow, it would be like turkey hunting up in Missouri. Seems like they've got good regulations up there. A lot of people fuss about them. You can only kill 1 bird that first week. You have to wait till the second week to kill your second bird. But really, that's a good way to run it, I think. They saved a lot of birds. I think the least kill that they'd had up there the last 7 or 8 years has been about 34,000 birds. I may be wrong on that, but I think that's about right. Last year, they had 52,000 birds killed up there, and I know the place where we go up there. I'm not going to say it's hunted out. They've still got turkeys. But you can go up there and make a call, and turkeys just shut up, seems like. They quieten down while they're on the roost. They gobble good on the roost, but they don't say much after they fly down. And I haven't had as much luck up there turkey hunting the last 7 years as, of course, the last 15 years, I've had to hunt by myself out in a blind. That's the only way I've got to move around to relieve my back from hurting, and I have to sit in a blind to hunt, and I just have to call from a blind. Now, when I go to Oklahoma, my oldest son, Bobby, hunts with me in the blind, and this year we went over there. We didn't make a call. Those birds over there pretty well shut up on the roost This year we had 1 bird gobble off the roost, and we didn't call to him. We knew we'd get him in, we thought, sooner or later, because we called enough after he flew down that he knew where a hen should be, and he would come back over there. And we didn't kill but that 1 turkey. And Bruce goes with me 1 day a year out to his place on the foot of the mountain, and I've hunted with him up there 4 years, and we've killed a bird on the first morning. The first morning we went, he killed a bird and I killed a bird, and then the third day I went up there with him turkey hunting. I killed a turkey that day, and he didn't get one that season, but his son-in-law killed one up there that year. But we've got a few more turkeys now in Arkansas. We got a few more birds to hunt, and that's a good thing, of course. I don't know what our kill will be this year, but I know there's a lot of us that didn't kill but one turkey this year. I hunted that first day of turkey season in Arkansas. I didn't kill another turkey after that first morning. And there was reasons I didn't go, but I won't get into that. But I just didn't go and hunt that second bird. And I know Devin and Dee hadn't killed a second bird in Arkansas sometimes because they just didn't think we have enough turkeys, And it's pretty bad when it gets that way, when you don't want to kill the second turkey. Everybody wants to kill the limit, but I know that they haven't killed the limit every year, and I know I haven't. And you got to think in your own mind that maybe that's helping the turkeys.
Yeah.
And we've got a few more turkeys, I think, this year. I heard a few more turkeys, and I'm sure they both heard a few more turkeys than we did last year.
Yes.
So it was good.
Dayne, can I ask how old you are?
I'll be 90 years old in October.
And how many birds have you killed this season?
Well, I've killed 263. That's not a lot, and if you got somebody that hunts a lot, I know there's a lot of people that's killed more than that, but I've kept up with them and wrote them down every year, how many I've killed. At first, I started writing some comments about them, where we killed them, what state we killed them, what day it was, and Lord, I've lost those books a long time ago, but I've kept up with how many I've killed, and I think I've killed probably 9 or 10 jakes, and the rest of them were adults. And after you kill a few, you don't want to kill a jake. I don't think you want to kill a jake anytime, but
There's been some oopsies in those times.
I've got an 8-year-old that would disagree with not wanting to kill a jake.
Do what?
I've got an 8-year-old that would disagree with not wanting to kill a jake.
Well, I can understand that. When you first, I said earlier in our podcast here that I killed 2 jakes in one season, and I killed one on our farm, and I went over to one of the neighbors over here across Spadler Creek, and I killed a jake over there. And I was proud to kill one back then. I was 40-something years old, but I was proud to kill a jake because we had plenty of turkeys, and it was legal to kill a jake back then. I started hunting there in 1984, and I guess I've been hunting 60. Got a frog in my throat.
Be 42 years.
Since 84.
Yeah.
Seemed like it's been longer.
Let me pick this microphone back up. I think it's going to rub on your shirt if I don't.
Okay.
Dayne, have you killed, what all species of turkeys have you killed?
I've been to New Zealand 2 times. And Gene Denton, who had been a long-time member of the Turkey Federation's board of directors. He and I, when they first started talking about turkeys in New Zealand, he and I got in contact with the fellow that he had heard about in New Zealand. We went over there and turkey hunted. It's a long ways over there, but we had a good trip over there. Met a young man to hunt with for the first 3 days, and then we were going to hunt with another young man the next 3 days. And we went to New Zealand. Our limit was 4 per day. You could kill 4 turkeys per day.
Wow.
And we talked to this first young man, and we got there that afternoon about 2 o'clock. And he said, if y'all want to hunt, so you can go out this back pasture here and kill one if you want to. Well, we went out. I went out to one field, and Gene went to another pasture. And that afternoon, I started calling just before they was going up to roost. Well, I didn't know then that their roost tree out there might be a fence post, or it might be a metal gate. That's where they roosted, was top of those fence posts, or on a metal gate, or up in a tree. They didn't have to be up high in a tree. Just New Zealand didn't have predators. They didn't have many hunters over there. Nobody knew that they had a lot of turkeys. So they didn't know to shy away from predators. They don't have any possums. They don't have any coyotes. They don't have any fox. They don't have any bobcats. They don't have any coons. There's no predators, natural predators over there. The only predator they've got is the human being that's hunting. And they just not many people goes over there to hunt. Well, that first year, we were talking about jakes a while ago. I called in a jake that first time over there. Well, I didn't know. I thought that might be the only turkey I'd see, you know, the whole hunt. I thought it'd be like turkey hunting here in Arkansas. So I killed a jake that first day. Well, we got back to the house. We were staying in that boy's house that night. And I tell you what, people in New Zealand were the friendliest people that you'll ever want to meet. You were company, but they treated you like a neighbor. And if you were over there at mealtime, you were going to eat with them. There were a lot of sheep farmers over there. Every place we hunted, there was a sheep farmer that owned it, you know. And these guides paid the sheep farmer part of their guide fee for killing turkeys on their place. I don't know how many, they'd pay them so many dollars for each turkey they killed. And the farmers were proud to get rid of the turkeys because they eat the grain that their sheep would eat, and they were proud to get rid of the turkeys, you know. And they messed up their fence rows by roosting on the post. They had to have a cleaning every spring there to get the manure out from under their fence posts and from their gates. And we didn't know how many turkeys was over there. Well, I showed that boy that Jake that night. I said, I'm sorry I killed a Jake, but I said, I may be proud of it before this week's over. And he laughed at me, and he said, no, I said, you'll get a chance to kill 4 gobblers while you're here with me. I know 4 a day. I said, 4 a day? He said, yeah. I said, we'll see 4 a day that you can kill probably. Well, he had a lot of land over there, run a lot of sheep. We turkey hunted the next day, and I was only going to hunt with him 4 days. 4 days with him and 3 days with the next fellow I was going to hunt with. And so I'd killed one that first day, and he told me I just killed 3 the next day. And by noon the next day, I'd killed 3 grown gobblers. They looked like a Merriam gobbler. They got white tips on their tail fans, look just like a Merriam gobbler. They're not quite as big. A big gobbler over there, a big gobbler will weigh 20 pounds. You'll kill a lot of them that'll weigh maybe 18 pounds. I killed one bird over there the second year that I went that just weighed 16 and a half pounds, and he had 1.25 inches spurs. So he was a full-grown gobbler, you know, and he was old enough to have weighed a lot more than that. But that's how big he was. And anyway, we killed, on those 4 days, we killed 16 birds with that one fella. And we hunted 3 days with the last fella, and we killed 12 birds apiece in those 3 days. So that made 28 birds we'd both killed each. And Well, we liked hunting over there because you could walk up.
Your boy'd like that.
Yeah.
You could walk up to a field and you'd see turkeys off over there. Boy, they had big fields. And there's high mountains you had to climb up. You had to be in shape to hunt over there. But I was in good shape back then. And we'd climb up the top of those mountains. Man, you'd be getting tired the time you got up the top of them. And you had to go up a mountain and down a mountain, maybe on one turkey. But you were in pretty good shape, so you could do it. And we killed 28 birds there in 7 days, and all of them were full-grown gobblers. Gene wound up and killed a Jake on one of his hunts, but I think that was because he shot two in one shot. But we had a good time over there hunting, and so we decided the second fellow that we hunted with, he could hunt about anywhere he wanted to. He was a state predator hunter. In other words, if you had something that was out of line in the game in your area, if you had too many whatever, he'd come out and trap them off for you. He'd come out and trap the turtles off for you. But they didn't have any game that would kill the wild turkeys. There was no predators on them. They had I forget what they called them. They had a possum over there. It was a crazy looking thing. It was snub nosed and just a funny looking animal, but it was a possum. And they called it a funny name. I don't know. I'd heard about them all my life, but that's where they were from. But they wouldn't eat wild meat. They wouldn't eat wild meat, and so they didn't have any predators. You'd go up to a field, you'd drive up in the yard there, and they'd have a pasture out here, and you could look out across that pasture with binoculars, and you'd see turkeys over there. Well, not every time, but a lot of times you'd see turkeys. Well, you had to go find a tree line to go set up in, and you'd start calling, and about every one of those birds would come in, and they'd have 2 or 3 gobblers in one bunch. Oh, we could kill 2 turkeys. He could kill one, and I could kill one. Gene and I could kill one. We killed 2 turkeys just at one little old spot there, and changed spots 4 times that day, and that's all we had to do to kill 4 turkeys each. And we killed that year. We killed 24 times 7. We killed 28 birds a piece that way. We killed 56 birds that second year. First year we just killed we killed 40. No, we killed 56 that year, I guess. But we hunted with one guy that second year we went over there. And Gene even killed a peacock. He wanted to kill a peacock. And that old boy that was with us, the game trapper, he knew where there was a farm that had some peacocks. He said, if you want to kill a peacock, said it's not going to cost you anything. Said, this fella's got so many peacocks on his place that he'd love to get rid of them. He asked me if I wanted to kill one. I said, Lord, no, I ain't got a house that big. So Gene went out with him that evening, and he killed a big peacock. It had one of them broad fans, and I couldn't reach across it, I don't guess. But it was a big peacock. But he was a good guy and a really good man. And I'll never forget, every time you went to go hunting with somebody, you think of somebody unusual, something unusual that they did for you. Over there, we ate at a different farm, every day when we'd eat lunch. We'd go in and she'd have big meal for us. You know, she's going to be there. She'd tell you, now, you've got to come back and eat lunch with us. When you left out early that morning, you didn't have to get out there too early because you could see birds most of the times when you go to a farm. And she said, I'll have dinner here for you when you get back. And there was a lot of lamb served over there. And I'm not particularly interested in lamb. I mean, I don't just relish lamb meat, but it's good meat. And it'd always be just a pork chop of a lamb, I guess what you'd call it.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, it was good meat for lamb chops. Now it was good meat, and that's usually what you'd have for dinner is a big one cooked up the whole chop there, and they'd slice it. The television over there is we watched some television. Mostly all they had was just talking shows, and they had fancy shows here in the United States. You know, my wife and I even had a television by the time we went over to New Zealand, you know. We didn't have, it was a long time before we got a television set. We had Nite Lite before we had a television set. But there was just a number of people over there that just treated us real with a lot of hospitality. Everyone that you went to hunt on, they wasn't treating you like a stranger. They treated you just like you were one of the family. And I remember we went over there to hunt with that game warden the second year we hunted. We hunted that first day, and it got down to about 40-something that morning. Pretty cool. It's a different season of the year over there a little bit than when we went here. And I wasn't expecting any cold weather. I had a jacket. They told me to bring a jacket. I brought a jacket. And we went out and turkey hunted that morning. By the evening when we come in, I was getting pretty cool. And we got home that night. She had a big dinner fixed for us. Had the table all set. She said, well, y'all feel all right tonight and ready to eat? We said, yeah, we're ready to eat. She could tell I was kind of cold. I was kind of huddled up in a knot there. She said, Dayne said, are you cold? And I said, well, I got pretty cold today. I said, my feet's still a little bit cold. So anyway, we sat around there till about 10 o'clock and finally went to bed. Crawled in bed there. There was just a little single bed in there in the corner of the room. And had a little room by myself. And I coiled up in there and stuck my feet down under the covers, and boy, it was something warm under there. And back here, when I was a kid growing up, Mama had a hot water bottle, an old rubber hot water bottle that she used all the time. Well, that's what she'd put in my foot of my bed that night when I went to bed, and my feet just felt toasty warm. you just feel things and see things and do things everywhere you went hunting that was different, and there was fun. That's the only 2 times we went over there, but we killed 56 birds apiece over there in New Zealand. So part of mine was hunted over in New Zealand, but
only one you hadn't killed is a gould, right?
The gould I haven't killed, no. That one you've got to go down to, I guess, New Mexico or Old Mexico to kill the gould. And it's pretty expensive to hunt them down there. I know back when I was traveling to turkey hunt, it was about $3,500 to go, and that's been, 20 years ago, I guess. And I never did go down and hunt the goulds. I considered it, but I didn't think one turkey was enough for that.
You've got the Grand Slam, you just don't have the World Slam.
I haven't got the World Slam. I've killed 4 Grand Slams. I've killed 4 turkeys in Florida, and you've got to kill one to make a Grand Slam. I've killed plenty of turkeys that were the Merriams, and I've killed plenty of Eastern turkeys and plenty of Rio Grandes, you know. But I would have killed more Grand Slams, but I just didn't have enough turkey hunters. That was pretty expensive to go down there for the final years. Yeah, it was. Turkey hunting has been a fun part of my life for a number of years. I've really enjoyed turkey hunting. This year I only went turkey hunting 2 days, and that was the first day of the Oklahoma season, and we've been hunting out there about 12, 13 years on the same farm. A fellow just owns a little private farm out there. He's got a good little creek bottom that we can go set up on, and I was hunting the blind there. I have to go where I'm hunting the blind, and you can call. This is the first year we've gone out there that we hadn't called in turkeys, but we didn't make a call this year. Just to be honest with you, we didn't make a call this year. We just went out there and set in the blind and waited on them to come by there on that little creek, and this year wasn't as interesting as most of our turkey hunts, but I guess I always like to go to Oklahoma because you look at the land out there and you say, well, this land doesn't have any turkeys on it, No turkeys live here. But down in those little, I call them creek draws, they're just little branches that you can step across, But that's where the turkeys are, down in those little dips and draws out there. And there'll be turkeys just about everywhere you see those draws out where we go in western Oklahoma. So I feel pretty confident that I can kill an adult gobbler out there about every time I go. Now, when you go out in Oklahoma, Bobby's gone out there the last 3 or 4 years, and he's a good caller. He's a real good caller. He's like these boys, they can call, and I still can't call real good. I can call pretty good on a box call, and a slate call I can call on. And I'm not ashamed to go turkey hunting with them because I don't call a whole lot. And you don't have to call a whole lot to kill a turkey. You've got to find one that's in the mood to want to come in. And that's kind of the secret to turkey hunting. It's not a secret, but it's just something you've got to find. I know last year Devin went after a turkey up on the mountain. I think he walked about 3.5 miles before he got to him across the top of those mountains. He killed the turkey, and then it's 3.5 miles before he got back out. So that's 7 miles to walk to kill one turkey. You've got to want to kill a turkey to do that. Mm-hmm. And of course, you've got to want to kill a turkey, and you got to be able to. I'm not able to. My years have got the best of me, and like I say, I have to hunt in the blind. But I don't mind it. I've killed as many turkeys out of a blind as I've ever killed hunting, just going walking through the woods and killing them. But
I don't know. We killed a pile of turkeys before you had to move to a blind.
Oh yeah, we've killed a lot of turkeys before then. Yeah, we've killed a lot of turkeys, and it's been a lot of fun. I don't know if I'll get to go next year, but I've said that the last 7 or 8, so I'm hoping this year that I get to go next year. And I told the fella out in Oklahoma that I probably wouldn't be back next year. That I thought the time had about caught up with me. But I've been thinking about it since season closed yesterday here in Arkansas. And I'd like to go back out in Oklahoma and turkey hunt just one more time.
You seem pretty spry. I'd be surprised if you're not out there killing Oklahoma turkey next year.
Yeah. Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, Dayne, I hope I'm not cutting you off, but we've been going for about 2.5 hours now.
That makes a pretty good 30-minute cough show, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I could go on for a long time.
He'll have plenty of editing to do.
Oh, it's all right.
Well, you'll have to edit it a lot. I got pretty coffee with my talking. I don't talk very good. I knew I wouldn't when you got down here. But this cold has caught up with me about Sunday night. A ball game Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We saw 4 ball games. All of them was up around Federal and north of there. And I was worn out when I come in. I was tired. And I went to bed as soon as I got home that night. When I got up the next morning, I couldn't hardly talk. I guess I'd hollered too much at them ball games. But the little girls did good. They played like little champs, and they won both of the tournaments that we went to the last 2 weeks, and I hope they get to play the last game this week. That's what I'm hoping for. May not happen, but I know they're all wanting to.
That's right.
And as long as you want to and do the best you can, that's all you can do is the best you can. And I know they'll do it because they play together well.
Yep.
I'm proud of them.
Well, Dayne, I want to thank you for giving me your time. I've sure enjoyed meeting you and listening to your stories.
Well, I'd like to take you out and show you my trophy room outside, but I just don't feel like walking out there. Devin can take you out if he wants to. Don't have many turkeys mounted out there. We've got a few beards. But I know that I've got the first 18 turkeys that I killed out there, except for the jakes. I didn't hang the beards up on them. You know, I used to. Well, Bobby done the mountain up in frames. He did a frame for a place that we bought up in Missouri where we used to turkey hunt. And we bought a little place up there, and Devin and I and Bobby still go up there some. We don't go as often as we used to, but we've got a framed, I believe, what is in that? Is there 21 in that frame up there?
I believe so.
I believe there's 21 in the beards in one frame. It's about 4 feet long. They're just rolled up across there. We've got one up there that he's done. He's done some at his house, and he's done one for my shop out here. And that's about all the turkey beards. Well, I had 2 sets of turkey beards that were 9 on each one of those. Those were the first 18 birds that I killed. And they're mounted up on some wooden plaques made like a turkey fan. I've got a turkey fan mounted on it. And then I've got all these 9 turkey beards down below it. I've got 2 of those out there. But it takes me a long time to. I wrapped them all with embroidery twine and painted them red where I wrapped them. And my fingers would about wear out on it every time. And I finally said I had enough. But I've got turkey fan spurs. I'll have Devin go in and get them to show you some of the turkey spurs that I've kept. I'm proud of them. I used to brush them all down with a little rotary thing. Just brushed them all down and kept them, and I've got them on a string in there. I've got, I don't know, there's probably 8 or 10 feet of them, I think. If you want to go get them, Devin, I'll bring them in and I'll show them to him. And bring in my hat in here.
Is it out in the warehouse?
No, it's in my bedroom. It's in my bedroom, sitting on that table on that side of the bed, at the foot of the bed, and there's a plastic box full of them, and my turkey hat. You can bring them in here.
That old hat's seen a lot of turkeys hit the ground, I bet.
No, I hadn't seen a lot of them hit the ground. It's my old hunting hat that I always wore at the Turkey Federation. That's the one I wear at the Turkey Federation. And I never did buy it. I found it in one of the rent houses that we bought. And it's an old replica, it's an old hat out of one of them rent houses. And huh?
It ain't in here, is it?
Over on that side, at the foot of the bed, on that little table. Boy, I hope it's here. Yeah, there they are. I grind those down with that little grinder.
That right there is cool.
That is cool. So I'm looking at, I'd call this a camo, kind of a, I don't know if I'd call this a fedora type hat. It's just a short build, kind of full brimmed hat. And it has got every single one of them about a 1 1/4 inch turkey spur. All the way around it is a hat band laying down, and then Devin's over there holding up about a 12-foot long strand of spurs. Maybe longer.
That's one of them.
That's one of them, huh?
It starts with the little one and grows to the big ones in the middle. Biggest ones are on the hat, yeah. But there's another little strand of them that I started.
Wow. That's a lot of spurs.
I've been to just about, well, I said just about all the, I hadn't been to the last 4, maybe 5, last 4 anyway, have a Devin. Turkey conventions, I hadn't been to the last 3 or 4, I know. Last 4 I don't think I've been to. But I've been to nearly every one of them before then, except the ones they had in St. Louis, I didn't go to it, and the one they had out in California, I didn't go to it. But I've been to most of them, and I always going back and seeing my friends, but there's not many of them left anymore. Will Primos is always out there, and he's about the only one of the turkey call manufacturers that's really out there anymore. He's got where there's not a lot of them out there.
Well, I have sure enjoyed the conversation, and thank you for inviting me into your home and
Well, I've
being willing to do this.
enjoyed visiting with you. I guess I'm too talkative. I skip around too much.
I thought it was real good.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you look at the statistics on what episodes mine do better, it seems like the less I talk, the better they do. So this is perfect.
Well, if I knew where they were, I could get you a video of my. We used to own after we closed our manufacturing plant down here in Clarksville, I opened a place called Whitetail World, and we had it for about from 1993 till 2006, and we had a lot of people come by, but we're not in a big enough town to really support it. And I got a call from Cabela's one day, and they were looking for some large deer heads. And we were selling replicas at that time, and we met a fella up in Wisconsin who had some replica molds, and he had about 50 of them that he had made over the years. And we wound up buying his 50 molds and opening a little whitetail museum down here, and we had about 100 heads mounted down there, and had that little whitetail museum was a beautiful little museum. And anybody that went through there enjoyed going through it. We had the stories cut out of the whitetail magazines, and some of them were 4-page stories, most of them. And we had those 4-page stories mounted up. A lady that made friends with when we had Nite Lite was Zeddy Jones. She's an artist from down in Stuttgart. And that's another story. But anyway, she painted she get another start here. She framed all of those magazine articles, and we had magazine articles from about 2/3 of the mounts that were down there, and had this full magazine story as they appeared in the Whitetail magazine, and it was named Whitetail World was the place that we had doing business with us. And another fellow that I met, the whitetail business was
Klaus
Liebrich that did all the mounts for us, and he would do new mounts every time we would get the rights to a new mount. It was a state record or right up in the world records. We had at one time 8 of the top 10 world records in the United States, and one in the museum down there. We had the Milo Hansen buck, which is the current world record typical, and the current world record non-typical was the Missouri buck that was found dead on the highway up there. We had both of those. We had the Milo Hansen buck, which was the world record before. I'm not the Milo Hansen, the Jordan buck that was the world record typical buck before the Milo Hansen buck. And then we had the Breen buck, which was killed in Minnesota, and he was the world record before the Jordan buck. So we had 3 world records, and we had another one that was the world record before the one that was killed in Missouri. So we had 4 of the top 5 world records that was killed in the United States. And we had the hole in the horn, which is the number 2. So we've got the 1, 2, and the past number 3 record in the non-typical, and we had them all in the museums. That was another story about that, but that was an interesting place, and we had a lot of good comments on the place, and we finally sold it after we'd had it for about 13 years. But it was a lot of fun. Met a lot of nice people there, and it was a lot of fun. But I thank you so much for coming up and listening to me rattle. It's kind of a rattle in the way I talk, but I enjoy talking to people. Even though I've had 4 or 5 strokes, I've still got a little bit of voice, and I can still say a little bit. But it's good visiting with you.
Yep, I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and thank you, Devin, and thank you, Dee, for setting all this up and helping all this come to fruition. And for everybody out there listening, take care and keep wearing out that boot leather. I just want to give everyone that's listening a sincere thank you. Getting this podcast going has been a project. I really hope you're enjoying it, and if you don't mind, give the show a good rating and review wherever you're listening to it at, or share it on your social media to help get some traction. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to your feedback.